down payment, 40 grand. So it had a limited budget, and I told him it's going to be hard to get into something like that. You're going to be in the mid to lower twos, and it's going to be a property with an HOA, super competitive. But what I told him said, hey, let's take that $40,000 and let's increase your sales price. I think we got him up to like 415. And instead of dumping all the 40 grand into a down payment, let's apply 15 of that to the car, refinance the car. It ended up saving him $300 a month. And then we got him up to like in the 400 range with a $1,500 payment. So net cash out of pocket was less, and he could still afford it. So I think just getting creative with the buyers to increase their price, because that's what they have to do, and find ways to enable them to qualify for a higher payment and, not flex their total monthly budget. So that's one big one, and it's technical. Every deal's different, but I think that's important. Secondly is leveraging the lender when you submit offers to proactively call the listing agent. I would say 50% of the time the listing agent answers. We text them half the time. Maybe they text back, maybe they don't. But there are occasions where I think yesterday, I'm still waiting to hear, but I think we did get one accepted because I was able to, I don't know, sometimes listing agents will just give me as the lender more information than they'll give you. So I was able to go back to the agent who was writing the offer for the client, tell them what the seller would be looking for, and they quickly changed their offer before sellers reviewed. And I think we did get it accepted. I haven't seen it yet, but that was the indication. So I think leveraging your lender on those things is really important.
Awesome. We talked about some bridge loan ability, and maybe we've had some agents, so I'm kind of jumping ahead just so we can capture him while he's here, but some agents being willing to, or finding some private money, whether that's from an agent or from private lender, hard money. Talk to us about that, what that would look like, any pros and cons, and what you can see from the lending side.
So we do hard money. Me and I have two other partners. We have a hard money company that we do. So we do some of this. It gets complicated on a hard money lender's side because you have to do it. They've got to be business purpose loans. And of course, if you're lending to a borrower to occupy a home, that's not business purpose. So we've done a couple where we got strategic, where the agent actually just turned themselves into the buyer. They bought the property, did the hard money loan through us, and then sold it back to their client, where there was no loss. It was just kind of a wash on price, but they were able to turn into a cash buyer and get it done that way. So we've done that. But on the flip side, if you are an agent who has some money that you'd be willing to invest and do a hard money loan for your client, it is something you guys maybe are less compliant on. We are ridden with compliance because I'm a licensed lender and our company is licensed. So it's crazy, but you being a person have more flexibility. Tyler and I were talking about, what does that look like? What are the risks? And he brought up a good one, which is we're often going over asking price to get these properties under contract. Maybe even as a cash buyer, you're going over asking price to get it under contract. And then if you give your client a hard money loan, so this is a scenario where your client is still the buyer, you give them a hard money loan. If you say it's a $350,000 house, you got to bid up to $380,000 to get the deal. Well, what are you going to do if that appraisal on the refinance transaction now? Because remember, when we take it to long-term to pay your hard money loan off, it's going to be a refi. Is there a higher likelihood that the appraisal is going to come in low? I would probably say yes. We see more low refi appraisals than purchase appraisals, mostly because of the target. But a good strategy, and honestly, from a lender's perspective, I do hard money. You have to bifurcate this, and the last thing you want to do is be foreclosing on your client. That would really destroy the relationship when you try to actually make it stronger. So I would probably just refrain from doing that unless they have a significant investment down. Like we would demand 20% down before we did a loan to a client. So if you want to do a hard money loan, ask for 20% down. Then if the appraisal comes in 5 or 10% low, you're covered. And their loan terms, of course, on the long-term loan change a little bit. They're at a 90% LTV instead of 80, but that would be a good strategy. And I think pretty low risk at that point if you got those clients that have some cash, which we know that people have a lot of cash. So that would be my tips. I do have some templates for a note and a trust deed and a payoff that I can share with you guys. if you're interested in doing that, or talking offline about a one-off scenario, I'm happy to brainstorm with you, because I do a lot of it. I don't know, we do maybe 50 or 60 hard money deals a year. So
Awesome. Thank you, Brock. What thoughts on that topic? Do any of you guys have any thoughts on those?
So this is a strategy I'm using frequently right now. So I probably need to talk to Brock as well. I have a lot of cash buyers who are not cash buyers, but we're using the strategy where we're using hard money, and then they're immediately refinancing out of it. Obviously, you talk about the risks, the pros and the cons before you do the deal. If it doesn't appraise and someone's willing to go 15, 20,000 over asking even with cash, which you kind of have to do even with cash, because the next offer group is, you know, $30,000 or $40,000 above the list price. So as long as you're talking to everyone about the pros and the cons, here's what's going to happen. If your appraisal on your refi does not come in where it needs to be, you're going to have to make up the difference with cash. But honestly, these people are agreeing to pay up front, right? Whose buyer's not agreeing to pay up front to pay above appraisal or to waive the appraisal? I mean, that's super common. And that's what you have to do to get your clients under contract. So if they have the money to do it anyways, typically they're getting a little bit lower price than the top price because they're cash. And they become that sexy cash offer, even though they're nowhere near a cash buyer. They just have to know the pros and cons of what happens after if your appraisal doesn't come in. But, and I'm probably rambling too much, but what my clients are doing is we're putting in the cash offer. We're using a note and a trust deed so they can refinance out of it. They start that process while they're under contract still. They're typically only holding these hard money loans for 3 weeks. So maybe 3 to 4 weeks. So it's not like they're carrying that high interest rate. And I don't know if you're 10%, that's kind of what I'm seeing. It's a quick return. So it's typically, and I don't, the people that I work with, and it may be different for every hard money lender. I don't know. I work with a couple. They're both the same. They're 1% origination fee, and then it's 10% interest only for the period that they have the loan.
Okay, so does the lender care if they purchased it and you don't care, right? If somebody bought a house and did a hard money, whatever, and then 3 weeks later, it doesn't make any difference.
As long as there's a note and trust deed.
As long as there's a note and trust deed.
Yes.
So they technically, say they were a cash buyer. So some other scenarios are people liquidate retirement funds or find some other source of the cash without a note and trust deed. Sometimes that happens. And there is a thing called delayed financing. Timing is critical, and you can only use the lesser, well, not like anything, but use the lesser of the appraised, well, actually not like anything, forgive me. You use the lesser of the appraised value or the purchase price in that delayed financing scenario. If it's an owner occupied home, paying off a note and trust deed, you just use the appraised value. So you could come out ahead, especially considering, like he said, they're getting it at lower than what the regular buyers are going to have to bid up to. So the value may very well be more than what they're paying. And then one additional note, and I've got a jet, but one additional note is we can do a hard money loan directly to the buyer if they're an investor, not if they're an owner occupied buyer.
So you have somebody, and then he
Yes.
refinance it, right? Like your lender would refinance it.
And one other thing I'll add, when I meet with my buyers and they're that under $500,000 buyer, I talk to them about the market. They understand that it's going to be crazy. They understand there's going to be lots of offers. I offer this up front. I say, hey, just so you know, just put this in the back of your mind. We have the ability to get you a hard money loan where you're a cash offer, and you know your offer will look better. It'll make everything a little bit easier for you. But there's also additional fees. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but you'll probably pay less than the top offer. You'll get a little bit better deal in the house. So maybe it's kind of a wash. None of my buyers start out with the cash offer. They usually lose 1 or 2 offers, and then they're like, all right, what's this cash offer again? Let's talk about it. So it's not jump right into the cash offer usually. I offer it right up front. And this is something new. This is like the last 4 or 5 months. I haven't done this before because I haven't needed to. But it is a good strategy if you make sure everything is good on your buyer's end as far as they have enough money to cover the difference. If you have a first-time buyer and they're 3% down only, and they're going 15, 20,000 above appraisal, they're going to have a second loan to pay for that amount that didn't appraise, right? So if it was 350 and they paid 380, they're going to have a $30,000 additional loan.
Am I good? Yep. To go along with that, I think we need to make sure we're having real upfront conversations with our clients about that and about their options and letting them know about the potential risks that come along with it, because they're looking to us for direction on what they should do. And we got to make sure we're not going to put them in a spot that could potentially make their living situation incredibly difficult. Like if they're
already have a loan.
Yeah, they are.
You have to talk to the lender while you're doing this. You gotta have that already gone.
Totally, for sure. Because if they're a first-time buyer and they don't have a whole lot of cash on hand, you know, if there ends up being this huge appraisal gap between what they've committed to, I mean, and it's hard money where interest is really high, we just want to make sure we're not getting them in a spot that they're just like, okay, well, that all sounded good in theory and we got the house, but now like this kind of sucks, you know? So we got to just make sure they're just fully aware of like the path we're going down. And if we have a client and we know when they're in that position where they're fairly cash poor because they're a first time buyer, we just got to make sure we're careful about what we're proposing, because we don't want to sour that relationship. Because if, yeah, we get them a house, but we put them in a bad spot where they're like feeling like they kind of got screwed in a sense, if you want to call it that. I mean, when the need comes for real estate down the road, they're probably not going to call us. So, you know, be smart, like represent people well. Don't just like focus on just getting the deal done, you know, like look out for people's like best interest.
Yeah, I totally agree. No, I totally agree. I feel like you guys summed it all up. So
Awesome.
I think my biggest thing is the appraisal. I feel like if I were to do the cash, like if I were to be the cash or lender or whatever, I would kind of want to know what the appraisal is going to come in at, because I would feel bad for putting my clients in that position. If there's other options where I can just have the lender see if they're putting so much down, then maybe we could already get the appraisal waived, you know, or they're already going to be okay paying about the difference. And if I can just get them under contract with that versus like the cash route, I would rather do that. You know, if my client can close in 2.5 weeks versus like 2 weeks with the cash side. So I think it's a great option. I just, yes, like Scott said, like just make sure that you're talking to your clients a lot about it to make sure you're not putting them in a bad spot.
Yeah, it comes with risks, but you also have the risk of putting 20 offers on 20 different homes and you don't get any of them. So there's
Yeah.
risks on both sides.
And it's definitely like they have to have cash. You know,
Yeah.
you're not going to do it for like someone that's a first time home buyer, Utah housing, you know.
Yeah. And this is a thought that you brought up when you were saying that. I don't know if an appraiser would do this, but if you could get an appraiser to give you an appraisal on that home while you're under contract, maybe they, instead of being invasive and going in, that way you have an appraisal already in place and you can feel confident. Maybe you get that done before your due diligence like
Yeah, or
that.
maybe you get it ordered like upon acceptance,
Yeah.
you know, right away, and then have it back hopefully before you close.
Awesome.
When you're, do you want to talk loud? Oh, it doesn't. So when you are the investor and you're putting that cash down, like, is the collateral, is the home and is the purchase in your name, or like what kind of risk are you taking? I mean,
You as the agent.
So I'm not the hard money lender myself. I work with 2 hard money lenders. We're putting it in their name now,
Buyer's name.
in the buyer's name. Yep. Then it's a loan, right? It's a hard money loan. I mean, there's a note and trust deed there. It's just like you have the same document. So like Brock was saying, you don't want to foreclose on your new clients, right? So you kind of make sure that this is a good fit. It's not a good fit for everybody.
I like that route better of not being the lender versus just having the hard money, because then you can get the appraisal ordered, then you can refi out really quickly, and then they can just use that appraisal or the purchase contract, whatever is lower. And at 1 in 10, that's pretty good. So I need your hard money lender.
And the other thing, although even if you were giving your clients the money, you had the money and you were giving them the money, there's a 1% origination fee. So somebody's making, 1% and then 10% interest for the month. if you're the person making that money, a lot of your clients will be like, you're greedy, you're making so much money off of me, even though you're doing them a favor. So I like using someone else, so it's not me.
But all those terms are really fair, actually. Yeah, for hard money. Yeah.
I like it.
Especially at 1 million,
Right?
Do you know how many you've done that you've successfully closed doing that so far?
So as of like, right when this meeting started, I just put my 5th one under contract doing this. Yeah. And
That's awesome.
I just literally got the text that our offer got accepted. So yeah, I was excited.
Sweet.
I know.
Celebrate. That's great. We've got, so questions in the room and also on Zoom. Just a reminder, get those thinking.
So do your buyers then have 10% down for the hard money, or what's required on that?
They have to have enough to, like, we're looking at how much money they have. Like if they're a first time buyer, they got to have some money saved up, right? If it's somebody who's going to sell a home, so a lot of the times they have a home to sell. So if you put your contingent upon selling your home, you're not going to win a lot of deals right now. So they have that home to sell. They've been in there 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They have a ton of equity. So we're kind of banking on that equity, right? They'll have enough for their down payment. They'll have enough to cover any gaps. So once again, it's looking at the people, making sure that that's a good fit for them. This is not my only strategy. This is just one thing, one arrow in the quiver that we're adding to the bag, right?
So if they have equity in their home, will they allow them to buy it with no money down? Because the equity is going to come from the sale?
Yes.
Okay. Will they use that like as collateral? Okay.
Any other questions around that topic?
What's the minimum amount down that you've seen?
For the hard money,
Yeah, like say they don't have a house.
unless they have a big bank account.
Grab a mic. Grab both of them.
Unless they have a big bank account. You really, this probably wouldn't work if somebody doesn't have a home to sell, and they obviously have to have been there. Well, right now, maybe a year. People have a lot of equity. And this is something like if you have a buyer and you're like, man, I've written like 20 offers for these people. We keep losing everything, and you want to have this conversation. Like I get there's some tricky situations with this. When I started doing this, I had some conversations with some other people that were doing this because it was like, whoa. So, I mean, text me, call me, whatever, or Brock or these guys, whoever's doing it, because there's some ins and outs of it. Okay.
So
Can I
want
ask
me to
a
read
question?
this?
I'm on Zoom.
Yep, go ahead.
Hey, I'm just curious, what kind of interest rates you're seeing for hard money loans?
It's 10% interest only. That's all I've seen. So it seems like that's the going rate.
Gotcha, thanks.
As far as the down payment, your most common down payment is going to be 20%. They'll want to see a good chunk of money being put down, just to for the leverage of it, just to be safe. So
Well, and to that, yes, but if somebody has a home to sell, most of their equity's in the home.
yeah,
We're using that as collateral.
yeah, it's almost like a cross collateral in
Yeah.
a sense. Yeah.
Okay, Tom Vidal says, for newer agents that don't have hard money lender connections, what would you suggest?
There's plenty of them. So just reach out to someone. There's plenty of hard money lenders. These are easy deals for them. They're in and out. They're fast. Yeah. I mean, post on the KW South Valley Facebook page, and somebody will give you some lenders.
Yeah, they're out there. People have a lot of money right now. So real quick, other than SOI, because I'm sure a lot of your deals are coming from SOI, are there any other sources that you feel like are working well for you guys?
So SOI. I'll tell you, I hate Zillow big time. There's an agent and they're with Keller Williams and they put like $1 million in a year. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll just go back in and try a little bit. So I put some money into Zillow. it's probably been like 5 months ago, and I'm only doing like $2,000 a month. The leads have been just garbage, like hot garbage. I get like 2 or 3 a month. I'm spending like $2,000 a month, and I'll never do it again. So my 6 months ends, I'm out. And then my whole thing for the last long time has just been SOI. It's really the way to go. I know there's some really good like door knocking teams and stuff, but just for me personally, it's SOI.
Yeah, same for me. SOI. I've pretty much just been doing that for a lot of years now and just sticking to it and just doing those things to make your touch points, your people, love on your people. I know as a new agent, that's like a hard answer to hear because like it's time, right? It's just like doing those consistent things, you know, year over year, and you just get that snowball effect going and you grow. I mean, because it's probably safe to say that Jason's probably doing more business now than he was like 6 years ago. And, you know, so.
Yeah. So let's just get on the same page as far as what you guys are seeing for offers. A lot of us have put offers in. Tell us what you would say would be the average offer right now, just so that we can kind of all hear what your guys' thoughts are. And maybe you have some feedback from listing agents from saying, why didn't I win, or things like that. What average offers are you guys seeing? And you can answer in any order.
That's the hard thing. It's not like I can just like get a marker and just write the recipe to win in multiple offer situations, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. And one thing I feel like agents aren't doing quite as well right now is they're not doing their homework before they offer on the property. Like they're not taking the time to really figure out like what would the market bear for this property? Like realistically, what could we go over? Like I'm negotiating one right now and they were listing at 1.1. And I did my math on it, went through my comps, like talked to the agent, and I was like, it's not even close to worth that. And so like we're in the process of negotiating right now, and I'm probably going to get it for him for $100,000 under asking price right now, just because that listing agent did kind of a crap job, like as far as like putting the house on the market. So instinctively, because it hasn't been on the market that long, you want to be like, oh my gosh, give them everything they want, like over asking, like just throw the kitchen sink at it. But you still have to like determine like, hey, is it justifiable to go this much money over asking price, you know, instead of just like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter, you know, what they're listing at because of this market, even though they're way overpriced. We still, like I had a deal last night that we didn't get. And by the time I had the conversation, like he was fine with it. I looked at the data, the house that needed work, renting out the basement, the numbers didn't really like add up or line up as far as like cash flow goes. Did put a bunch of money into renovating it. I found comps that were like 25 grand under just that sold last month. And so I straight told him, I was like, hey, we can like throw an offer at it, but like, I can't in good conscience tell you to go 20, 25 over on this thing, because I don't think you'd be putting yourself in a very good spot on this house, like for what you're wanting to do. And so, I feel like there's like a trust factor that he probably like trusts me and respects me even more so now, that I wasn't just telling him like, oh, you got to do this. You got to do this. If you want to get the deal, you got to do that. There was one previous the week before with that same client that we ended up not offering because it was just too far out of his budget with having to do work. That was one where the comps were great. It's like, hey man, like if you put this into the house, it could be worth this. Like you can potentially Airbnb the basement out on this thing. There was like tons of opportunity in it. And so I was like singing that house's praises. Like, hey, like I feel like here's where we need to come in at. We can be super aggressive with it. The numbers add up. You'd be flowing money out of it. Like I said, he didn't offer because it didn't work out for his finances for what needed to happen. But like I said, I'm not just going to fold and just give my client actually bad advice just because it's a hot market. I feel like we still have to value and represent them.
And then a big one for me that I've noticed is it's kind of to piggyback off what you're saying is having the conversation, doing your own comps, again, the CMA report to see where everyone's going so much over asking price, and seeing how, if you make an offer that's going over asking, like raising the floor to that point, having the conversation with the listing agent, like, hey, I'm sure you're getting offers well above this, but you're going to run into an issue with an appraisal. So here's the floor, and like having the conversation with your lender, because we'll be talking with the clients and, you know, they'll always want to do 20% down or do something like all their money down, their net equity that they have from the house into the new home. Well, with the market as it is, we'll have them put less money down on the home so they have more cash. So when that appraisal, if it comes in low, and having the conversation with their client about that coming in low, that we can get rid of the MI still in other ways and doing all this other stuff, but that extra cash they have is what's making up the difference. And then just kind of, I feel like we've had, as a lender, and TJ and Brock and I we get so many more calls from the agents about the appraisal. Order on a rush. It's going to come in low. We want to get this in before the due diligence goes hard, because we made the earnest money hard upon due diligence or these other things. Well, it's just kind of making sure that you're prepared for that appraisal to be low and having the conversation with the client so that they know when it comes in low that, you know, the listing agent has an idea as well that we've already had this conversation. It's not something new. And then you can just still streamline it and then move on forward, get an addendum, and then we can make the changes. That's been a big one. It's just having the conversations with the listing agent, especially for us. If you let us know what your guys' game plan is, when the listing agent calls us and says, hey, I noticed they're putting less money down. Why is that? Like, I had this conversation over the weekend, and it was just like, we're going over asking, how much over are we going? Because I didn't know what offer it was. And then they told us, and I'm like, well, where do you plan the property appraised at? And they go, we think it was a condo. And they're like, probably like 10,000 less. I'm like, that's why I'm coming in 10,000 lower on the down payment. Because if it comes in low, we won't have an issue using that money because we really want the property. And then we got that offer accepted. So then it wasn't a big problem. So.
Yeah, I think
Here's the crazy thing for me is we're all talking like, the crazy thing for me is we're all talking like buyer's agents, right? But I'm telling you right now, if I pulled up,
we're all buyer's agents right now.
no, I know, but if I pulled up anybody's listing right now, I'm pretty sure you aren't listing houses according to comps. Do you know what I mean? So on the flip side, we want to be like, hey, go in with your buyers with comps. But when you list a house, I'm pretty sure you're not pulling up your own comparables and listing according to what the comps say. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this problem. So I'm just throwing that out there. So with buyers, you're basically going in with the biggest cash difference and the biggest offer that your buyers are okay with and understand. Because as listing agents, we're not doing that either. There's no comparables. It's like, just list it wherever the hell you want.
pick your number.
So let's all be honest right now. That's how it is.
So for this condo unit, there's 3 other units that are under contract. So then it's just saying like, what are the other 3 going under for? One's 290, the other one, as long as one of them completes. So for me, it's like, I'm not going to rush the appraisal because I do want one of those other 3 under contract to close. And they've been under contract for a few weeks. So as long as we get one of them to close, then by the time we get the appraiser out there, we can use it. So it's kind of one of those things. It's more so for the condo because it's all in the same complex, but for single family homes, I mean, yeah, I do see some of the comps come in that we get. It's a pretty big discrepancy of like what we're going for. So
No, I get it. Comps don't matter. Cash matters. You just need to be strategic with cash with your buyers and give them information. Comps don't really matter right now. Cash matters.
I think the biggest thing too is to have conversations with the listing agent. So for us, we will have our buyers go out like the first day it's on market. I will call that agent that day, even though I know that they're not reviewing offers until Monday. And so like, I'll be in her ear, I'll text her, let her know, or him, I'll let him know like, hey, great conversation. This is who I am. So she remembers me because I know she's going to get 20 other calls from other agents. So then when I come back around on Monday, she remembers who I am and they'll usually tell me where I need to be. And then I'm not submitting offers on houses that my buyers would never qualify for. So usually for us, like we'll go under contract within the first or second offer because I know that, hey, this offer is going to get accepted. I think that's the biggest thing is us as agents, we just need to over communicate for our buyers and not be sending in 10 to 20 offers if this is not going to get accepted. So like for you got your offer accepted with Amy and we didn't submit our offer because yours was better. So, I think that's really important right now in this game because like Kevin said, like cash is king. Like how much can you go over appraised value? We're not getting offers accepted if we're not going at least 5 or 10 grand. And sometimes we have to get really strategic. Maybe they don't have enough money to go over list, but like say someone has solar panels, maybe we want to just take over that lease because our buyer can qualify for that. But if they owe like 20 grand on it, that's another 20 grand for the seller that, yeah, our buyers don't have 20 grand to put over the appraised value. So I think getting strategic and talking to the agents.
Yeah, as far as strategies, I think one of the most important ones right now is building a relationship with the listing agent. Like talk to them, become their friends, like find out what they like so you can just have regular conversation. Because then when they like you and things are close, they're more likely to work with you. The one I was just talking about here that I just got under contract right as this meeting was started. It was an agent I knew. We were friends. So when things came down to the very end, we were not number one, but they gave us a shot and we became number one. So have the relationship with the listing agent as much as you can. And then a herd bro comes in and everything goes to heck. And Tyler, I had a thought, and then I also had a story, so I hope we're okay with a little bit of story time here.
It's going to happen regardless.
When Tyler asked SOI or what else I did, I'm talking about right now. In 2014, I was not like in a place where I just had tons of business. So what I did, I got on the phone every single day, and I was doing cheap pro agent leads. I called people for 8 hours a day, every day. That was my plan until I had an appointment. So I would just call everybody. And after like 6 months, I had built up enough business again where I didn't have to do that. So my hours on the phone went down and down until I don't spend any time on the phones anymore calling leads. So right now, yeah, it's a little bit different. But if you're in a place where you don't have a ton of leads or you don't have a ton of buyers, or you don't have a ton of work, get on the phones. Just start making calls. Once you get a lead, that's kind of your thing. If you go out, show a home, you can call it quits for the day, but get an appointment every single day. And if you don't, then you're on the phone for 8 hours. The other thing is we do not get all our deals accepted. We're sitting up here because we got some deals accepted. We definitely don't get all our deals accepted. And I want to read you an email I got late last night. On Saturday, I wrote 2 offers for 2 different buyers. One of them just went under contract. It was one of those cash situations where we got them a hard money loan and they were able to win. The other one, we went $37,000 over asking price. We went half of that. We offered half above appraisal, right? So we were willing to pay, it was like 16 something above appraisal. So whatever the appraisal comes in, they were going to come out of cash more. We felt like we had a pretty good offer. And I want to read to you the email I got from the listing agent, just because sometimes it's just so mind-blowing. You put out a really good offer and you're not going to win it because somebody else was just that anxious, right? Somebody else was just willing to go so far above and beyond that you couldn't compete no matter how good your relationship was or how good your offer was. So let me just read this. This was on a $700,000 home or $675,000 home in Riverton. Hi, Jason. I wanted to reach out as soon as, if I can read here. I wanted to reach out as soon as I possibly could and hope you can accept my sincere apology for the massive delay. My clients ended up receiving 31 offers on this home, with half of them coming in right before noon today. My clients have decided to go with an offer that was such an outlier, it would have been hard for anyone to compete with. The offer they accepted is represented by an agent for all those who have asked, and I completely understand the concern there. I send my sincerest apologies as I know firsthand how much effort goes into every offer and all the time that we spend and invest in our clients. I just got my own rejection this evening as well. I truly would have been proud to have been among the clients represented here and truly aspire to many of your levels of expertise, excellent investment, care for your clients, and true sacrifice on behalf of your clients and personal lives and families. So number one, this is like the best rejection I've ever had, right?
Forward that to us.
Right?
Copy paste.
Right. And then here's the smack in the face. We are all in this new market together. So I wanted to provide the info below in case it is helpful to share with your clients for future context. Below are the main offer strengths I saw in the offers received for this cute home. First point, almost all of the offers came in above 700, and this is on a $675,000 home. 11 offers included an escalation clause. 11 offers included some non-refundable earnest money upon acceptance. 6 offers waived their due diligence contingency. 10 offers waived their appraisal contingency. 24 offers did not request a seller paid home warranty. 12 offers included a clause or the new appraisal floor addendum to account for their client's willingness to pay a spread in the event of a low appraisal. So I won't read the rest. Thank you for all your time. As good as we, they didn't. No. As good as we think our offer is, we're going to lose. We're not going to win every deal. We're going to lose them. You know what my clients did? They sent me another home this morning and said, let's go see this, right? So it's not the end. We're going to lose offers, but keep going. Your clients are still interested. Find ways, find new strategies, and it'll happen.
I think one thing too is once your clients, you kind of tell them what things need to look like to be competitive. And there might be a part of them that's like hesitant to do it. But then once they lose out on one or lose out on two, then they're like, okay, like now I get it. Like now I get it. And then you're not coming across as this agent that's just trying to talk them into something, right? And unfortunately, like I think most people probably got to learn that the hard way a little bit before they're like, all right, now it's time to like play ball.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions.
Oh, this is from Lori Erickson. She says, I want you to ask them how they cover their butts when buyers want to pay well over comps.
Well, I think it goes back to educating them. That's a conversation I have on my very first, like, I ask the lender, how much money do they have? How much money do they have to pay, like left over to pay above appraised value? I'll run the comps and I'll educate my clients and say, hey, this is where comps are looking. This is where I see the market going. This is where it's been the last year. You know, we really don't see it slowing down. And so all our clients know, like, it's only going to get worse. At least that's what we truly believe, because it has gotten worse since after the new year and even till now. So I think that that's just going back to educating them and making sure that they understand, you know, what they're getting into.
I think you're smart there too, talking about like kind of future pacing the market, right? What are the statistics showing, like everything from employment to people moving to Utah? I think those are all things that'll help people feel more comfortable with like going over asking price, to see that based on all the data coming from all over the country, we're at the very top of like everything pretty much. I feel like there's probably some security there as a buyer, with instead of them feeling like, well, if I pay this, am I going to overpay for it? Am I going to be upside down in it? You know, so good conversation to have.
Okay, we got a few more minutes, a few more questions.
I just actually want to add something to what the panel said that I think is really important. I think most of us want to always make sure our clients feel taken care of. How about this? I'm taking your panel away, suckers. Just joking. I think all of us want to really always make sure our clients feel like we're doing a really good job for them. When this market started to get really changing a lot, I would tell people like, hey, here's what we're going to do. You know, we're going to do an escalation clause. We're going to tell them we're going to pay $10,000 over. We'll do this. Hey, we'll do this. And you know what? I guarantee you we're at least in the top two. They should at least give us a call before they accept an offer. We can up it if we need to. Like, this is a great offer. And the client was like, okay, great. Let's do it. And then I'd come back to him and I'd be like, they didn't call me. I've tried calling them a ton of times. They're not taking my phone calls, and they just went under contract. And I felt like I just kept delivering bad news, and it was like shaking me at my core, because my clients love me. And I felt like they don't love me if I'm giving them this information. So what I've changed to do, and this is something that you guys are probably doing the same thing, is I just tell people now, hey, this is what I recommend. Let's talk about this. I've had this conversation. Do you guys want to do more than what I'm recommending right now? Do you feel good with this, or do you want to go more? And there are times they're saying, yeah, I want to go more, Justin. This is a home that we'll do 25,000 over. Do you think that's a good idea? And I say, well, if you guys feel comfortable with it, I think it's a good idea. I just want to tell you, this is what I would suggest. That has been a wonderful conversation, because when I come back to them and say, hey guys, guess what? We didn't get it. They say, dude, we put our best foot forward, and that's totally fine. Let's go see the next house. And when we do get it, they feel great because they got it. So tread lightly with that. You don't want to be a jackass just telling them to put like $50,000 over, right? If they don't need to. And that's kind of the hard part to balance. But that's my 2 cents.
So I will add to that, because yes, this conversation every single time, I tell all my buyers when we're in that multiple offer situation, I say, write the offer that you feel comfortable with, that you will not feel bad if you lose it, so we can move on. And you, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But that way they're putting forward their best offer, you know, and if they lose it by 5,000 at that point, it was their best offer. But as long as you don't pressure them into that, hey, you got to go 50,000, you got to, if you want to get this, you're still putting it in their hands. Let them make the decision to say, hey, put forward your best offer. So if you lose this deal, you don't feel bad about it. And they'll come up with their number and then they don't feel bad about it.
Hey, I'm not trying to steal your panel. This is like really good conversation.
take your shirt
yeah,
off.
Seriously. Bounce, bow, bow. No, just joking. We won't do that now. Don't start with me. I'm really not trying to steal your pencil. Jared Hansen, Tori, we talked about this. You remember that house in Sandy that had something like 97 offers?
98.
98. And I'm like, what the hell? Like 98 offers. Did this guy hit the wrong buttons? Right. And I'm like starting to talk to everyone. And Tori's like, we put an offer on that house. I'm like, no, we put an offer on that house. And then we're in a Josh Stern mastermind and freaking Jared Hansen stands up and says, oh, I had some clients that came here from California that spent $150,000 over a price though on a home that had 98 offers. And I'm like,
Of course,
you
Jared
son of a
would.
bitch. I'm like, you spent 150,000 over. Dude, this is where my paradigm shifted. Josh Stern says this to him, and they're your clients for life. And I'm sitting here thinking like, or they're going to hate you in like a couple of years because they'll never have that money back. Right. But Josh Stern said, dude, your clients, he said they were so frustrated. He said, your clients knew what they wanted. And your job is just to make sure you put them in the best position. And you did. And you got them the home. Over 98 offers. So do you know what they tell their other friends that are coming from California or whatever? They don't say we had to spend $150,000 over. They're saying Jared took care of us. And it was such a paradigm shift for me. And this is when I started having the conversation with my clients to say, hey, do you want to do more? Because I'm like, I think all of us would think, dude, 150, let's just be straight, dude. That's not a good deal. It's not, right? But it was for them.
That he was only paying 55 grand above appraised value. I talked to the
Oh, did
agent
he?
about it. So they offered that because we offered 100 grand over list price
Oh, I
with
love this.
20
Tori's
grand above appraised
competitive.
value.
Get it,
And I
Tori.
was like, why did we lose? You know? And so that's where he told me that they were only paying 55 grand. So yes, they submitted 150, but 55 grand now in the grand scheme of things is really
Is
not that much.
Yeah.
Like we lost out this weekend. Well, we didn't put an offer, but we lost out to someone at 1.1 million and this house is only worth like 1 million. Oh no, we lost out because they were putting 150 grand over list price when it's only worth 1 million cash offer. And so it's like 50 grand over. That's actually not that bad. I mean, we know clients that have made 50 grand in the last year, you know, so.
Dude, change the way you look at things and the way you look at things change. I just wanted to add that to you guys because this market's nuts, but don't put yourself on the cross. Take yourself off and just have conversations. So
I think the biggest takeaway, you guys, is just don't lose faith and like don't lose confidence. This can be very like, oh, I'm spinning my wheels all the time, but it'll happen. Like I always tell my buyers, like when it's the right house, like you'll know, like it'll feel like the right house and it happens and they're happy. Sometimes it might take a little bit more time, but it's just timing.
When it is the right time, your buyer can be the outlier, right? They've lost out on a few offers, but this one's perfect. So they become that outlier offer that the seller can't say no to. Your buyers feel good about it. They've made the decisions to get there. You know, whatever consequences there are with low appraisal, whatever, you know, I haven't had any buyers that have been like, you know what, Jason, I hate you. You're a terrible agent. You gave us bad advice. No, they understand the market once they've been in it for a minute. They've made the decisions for themselves. And, you know, you've stacked them up. They're doing things that they can do. So just keep on working with them. They'll lose some. They'll win one eventually. And everybody's happy.
Can I share a cool little story really fast? So I did it. I read it. Like you. I shoot from the hip, Jeb. So I did a deal with a client. It was a multiple offer. We were cash. It was in Bluffdale. We didn't have to go too crazy to get it, but anyway, that's not the point of the story. So we got it, did the deal, had a good relationship with the listing agent, got to know him a little bit throughout the process. Like, you know, we got along really good. And then I met up with him at the end to do the key pass off. And I was like, hey, dude, do you have any listings coming up? He's like, yeah, I got a condo in Vineyard. I was like, I got a buyer in Vineyard. Let's do it. I got this dude under contract, like basically from having a conversation with this agent that I just done a deal with, just because I asked him if he had anything coming up. I was like, you just tell me what your client wants. And he came back and he's like, hey, if he does this, this, and this, like, we'll do it. And then I'll just list the house and just mark it under contract. I'm like, done. We're closing this week. Like, just have conversations and get like creative. Like, that's why I was like making this push on Facebook. Like, dude, let's talk around the office. Like, what do we have coming up? You know, and people are getting on board with it, you know? Like Amy Gibbons has posted a bunch where I've shown two of her listings that were like perfect for like clients of mine. And so just stuff to give us a little bit of an edge there to, you know,
Yeah, or even builder lists. Okay, so you guys, so I had this client 2 weeks ago, brand new client, builder lists are like 6 months long. So Tammy Loescher, she said that her clients were signed up in the same spot. They weren't going to take it. And I asked if I could switch her spots and I did. And we got our buyers under contract. So if you guys have like your buyers on waiting list and your buyers are going to back out, maybe post it on the, what?
Was that Oakwood?
That was Keystone. Maybe post it so then we can like slip one of our other buyers in.
So I'll add to that. And it's a good idea. I have a Riverton townhome under contract, and somebody in this room, I won't say who, said, if you decide not to buy it, give it to me. And I will.
Kevin's smiling.
It's me. I've got first dibs. Yeah. So just so everyone knows, we are like, we have like one or two more questions, but if you need to split out, then we can do that. Trying to respect everyone's time. But I would love to know if you are able to, a few more minutes, what do you do for that $300,000 buyer that doesn't have a ton of money? I think a lot of us have those buyers that don't have a ton of money. Just in a normal market, we can get them under contract just fine. But right now they're getting outbid. And is there any strategies or anything that you guys are dealing with those lower range buyers with not a lot of money? Yeah, which is under $1 million.
I think it's still, you got to get strategic. So sometimes it may be having to like increase their rate a little bit to cover their closing costs. So then they do have money left over, or looking at a lower price point. So we had a client at 300. I'm like, there's no way we're going to get this guy under contract. But we ended up getting down to, he was okay with this property that was at 230. And we got up to 255. He was willing to pay $5,000 over, and we just adjusted his rate and we got him under contract. So I think it's just getting strategic in that way, and then still having good conversations with the agent, because that agent reached back out and said, hey, we have like 6 offers. What are your thoughts? Do you think you're going to still submit it? And I was waiting until last minute to submit it so I could talk to him again to see where he's at. And he's like, I would love to work with you. So this is where you need to be. So I think, again, like having that agent relation, and then getting strategic on your financing.
One thing I recently did, this was a $370,000 home in Lehigh, single family home. Obviously a ton of offers, a lot of competition, first time buyer. So he wasn't moving a ton of equity over. We had this. So to kind of come to everybody's world here, he had lost out on 9 offers, right? Because he didn't have the ability, because we couldn't do the cash thing with him. Because if it goes over appraisal, he can't make up the difference. Then he's taking out a second loan somehow, or paying the hard money lender 10% for way too long, which would just kill him. So what we started doing is just writing ridiculous offers. So if this thing, I don't remember if it was 360, 370, but we started going up to like 450 on these, and people weren't. I mean, they weren't going that high. Just to be that super high number that shocked the seller, like this is going to draw interest because it's so ridiculously high. But then we put how much the buyer was willing to pay above appraisal, which brings it back to reality, right? And he was able to do $4,000 over appraisal. Maybe it was 6, somewhere in that range. So the high offer really didn't matter, right? Last October, I was having people do this. Let's put in the high offer, but then it's still contingent upon appraisal. Well, we can't do that now, right? Because everyone's offering some kind of money above appraisal or waiving appraisal. So in this case, we just did a really high offer just to draw attention to the offer. It was kind of more fun than anything. We just threw a high number, and then he put his amount that he was willing to pay over. So it came back to where it should have been anyway. And he got the deal. So have fun with it too. I mean, we can't just be robots out here.
I think you definitely need to protect your buyer with what Rich's email had sent out about, like, if representing your buyer, then this is the verbiage you need to use. I had a situation recently where the seller wanted to back out. And so I was a little nervous that the appraisal was going to come in low. And if it did, then we were protected by this. But you get in those situations where it's like, well, if the seller wants to renegotiate, you could be kind of screwed. They may back out if they have like a better backup offer. So writing in that right verbiage, so it's like, no matter what, you're locked into this price, is going to be important too.
Awesome. We have one from Zoom that is asking, how are you guys dealing with escalation clauses, and any recommendations around that?
I usually will ask the agent if they like escalation clauses. And then I try to talk them out of escalation clauses and why they're a bad idea. But if they're still like, okay with that, then we'll do the escalation clauses, as high as it needs to go, knowing that, hey, this is like realistically where appraisals are going to be at. The reason why I don't like them is because a lot of people will just, like we said, shoot really high, knowing that, hey, it's going to come in low and get saved when the buyer may never have been willing to pay that price. So I say that that's okay.
I agree. I used to do an escalation clause on almost every deal. I don't do them anymore. But I do the same thing. I talk to the agent about an escalation clause if they have them, if they like them, if they're going to consider it, because offers are so crazy right now that escalation clauses I don't think make sense right now.
How you were saying that you try to talk the agent out of that. Could you both share why you would want to talk an agent out and kind of what your platform is on it of why they shouldn't do it?
Yeah. So usually what I'll say is, oh, gosh, escalation clauses are so tricky right now because you have, say you have 5 offers with escalation clauses. It's like, which one do you go with? And that can be kind of frustrating too, because then you're going back to them. And I personally would ask them to put their highest and best. We usually just say that, hey, we like to make sure that our clients are putting their best foot forward. So then your sellers know exactly what to expect because that that's exactly what we're willing to pay. You get escalation clauses where they're willing to go 100 grand over, but then once you get them under contract, are they going to try to renegotiate or back out? Because we've seen that too before. And so at that point, if I call them back later, that's usually what I'll just say, hey, where do we need to be to get this under contract? Do we need to be, would 50 grand over list price be competitive? And then they'll say, oh no, or yes, or they have something higher than that. And then we typically still try to stay away from escalation clauses and then still put our best foot forward and try to see where that highest escalation clause is and see if our buyer's even willing to pay that. If not, then I'll just have that conversation again with the agent, like, okay, buyer, they're doing these escalation clauses. Realistically, I feel like this is where the comps are going to be at. And then they're willing to pay this much above appraised value. Do you want to submit that offer? So if I can't get them on the same page, then I'll just submit the escalation clause.
The thing I've replaced escalation clauses with is, and I always ask the listing agent, and they usually say, yeah, that would be nice, is I just have my clients offer, usually like 2 weeks. I ask the listing agent, how much time would be beneficial to have for the seller to have in the home after closing? So a free lease back of a week or 2 weeks or a month. And that's our kind of new thing that we're throwing in on almost every deal, where we're giving them 2 weeks. It's usually 2 weeks. It just gives them the amount of time, to move, or it gives them extra amount of time to move out after closing. And we've all done that before. But yeah, escalation clauses right now, just because one offer is going to come in super high somewhere. And I just don't like them. I don't like them right now. They don't make sense. The market's just too insane. Buyers are too insane. The deal is just, escalation clauses don't make sense. But have the conversation. If it's an agent who doesn't understand them, it's like, yeah, throw in an escalation clause and throw it in and see what happens. Just make sure your buyer's protected, or if that thing's crazy, you can cancel the contract.
Escalation clauses, though, or different things to write up escalation clauses on outside of purchase prices. So be creative.
Hey, Tori, you seem like you're doing a really good job of getting listing agents into a place where they're willing to share information with you. Can you tell us a little bit how you're kind of buttering them up a little bit, where they just start dishing? Because with me, it's kind of hit and miss. Sometimes I'll build the rapport and they'll kind of be like, okay, and there are times they're just like, I just can't disclose anything, and they just get really standoffish with it, And so when they act that way, I don't want to just keep pushing and get them irritated with me. So you seem to have a pretty good success rate with that. Share.
I'd say honestly, ask enough questions, because sometimes I get that pushback too. But then I just talk about these clients are so solid. I do throw out that I was a mortgage underwriter and my clients are solid. We never fall out due to financing issues. And I'm like, I know that this will make you look like a rock star and that this will get us to the finish line and you won't have any issues, because we obviously won't back out. And so I'm like, and so then I'll just ask them, if they're still kind of not going to give me what I want to hear, then I'll say, hey, if we're $30,000 over list price, is that going to be competitive enough? And they'll be like, yeah. So for instance, this $1 million this weekend, she kind of wasn't opening up, but then I was like, okay, well, I'll just reach back out to you tomorrow because I know she was getting blown up on Saturday. And I was like, I'll just reach back out to you tomorrow before we submit our offer. And so I texted her that night and I was like, hey, such great conversation. Like, I would love to do a deal with you. Like, it'll be so smooth and great, blah, blah, blah. And then I called her later that night because my clients had questions and she's like, we got this cash offer and it's really high. And I'm like, okay, if we were at 1.2, would that be competitive? And she's like, maybe. She's like, but this cash offer is just, so high. And like, okay, do we need to be 50 grand above appraised value? And she's like, I don't think that'll be enough. I'm like, 150 above appraised value. And she's like, that'll be more competitive. And like, would that get it under contract? So I just say, ask enough questions like that, where that's when I know, okay, will we be competitive enough? Or they'll say, we have someone that's willing to go 85 grand above list price and they're waiving the appraisal. So I know like we don't even have a chance. I don't, because I end up getting like what I need to get out of them. But I would say, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the biggest thing is I just want to make sure that I don't make other agents feel like they don't know what they're doing. Even if they are brand new, sometimes they don't, but I never want to. So I guess I just try to educate them in a nice way by trying to get them to tell me what I need to know, because at the end of the day, like it's going to be in their client's best interest, right? To net them as much as possible. I'll just kind of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Crumble cookies delivers, guys.
I've almost gone there.
Crumble out so often.
Awesome. Any last burning questions before we wrap it up?
Kevin, I want to know your escalation clause.
No, you don't. If you're asking the right questions, like Tori said, right, and people have want their time wasted either. So what if you're asking a series of questions to get them to tell you whether it's worth your time to submit the offer? You gather that information, then you go to somebody else on your team or whoever, and you tell or ask as a different agent with a different client. Then you put that information down. Then you keep asking these questions. You can probably get that agent in a roundabout way to tell you exactly what offer you need to write up to not waste their time. And you're just increasing your offer every time. I don't know.
I think that's key, is saying like, I don't want to waste your time. Yeah.
People doing it, they think it's a different client, but you're asking the same questions for yours through a different agent.
That is something I do say. It's like, oh, I know, Margaret's so crazy. You're probably going to get 30 offers, or you do, because you have such a great listing. I know I don't want to waste your time reviewing an offer that's not even going to be in the running. So, and then that's where I say like, where do we need to be? But she's also getting, she's getting questions like, hey, someone's saying, what do we need to do to get this under contract? Or what do we need to do that's going to be, good enough for your seller? Like, they're already getting those questions. I think it's more of asking like, if we're 30 grand above list price, will that get, is that competitive enough? Because then that's different than saying, an open-ended question where they're getting that from 30 other agents.
And I mean, just having a conversation like that alone is like setting you apart from other agents. Like my last listing I got, I was like blown away how many like just emails I got, and that was it. Like just an email with an offer. Like that's it. No communication. I'm just like, what the hell? It's just weird to me. Right. So, I mean, Tori's dropping some good bombs on us today. This is great.
Awesome. Let's give our panel a round of applause. Thank you very much for you guys' time. You guys are awesome.